Philip Marlowe, just an average guy who happens to be a private eye. Elliot Gould is Philip Marlowe.
Your friend stole my money, and the penalty for that is capital punishment. Ow! You'll never learn. You're a born loser.
Elliot Gould in Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Rated R.
I'm through this time, and I mean it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Not Content Podcast. My name is Jerome Cuson. Here tonight on the episode, we are going to be continuing our conversation about Robert Altman. Last week, we went all the way to Korea for MASH. This week, we are going to Brian's home area of Los Angeles, California, as we are going to be saying the long goodbye. Please leave a 4 or 5 star review on Apple or Spotify to get those algorithms going. Please like and subscribe to the Not Content Podcast on YouTube. Click the bell icon for the notifications. And of course, my co-host is Brian. Brian, last week we discussed MASH. This week we are talking about a very different genre. We are going over kind of a neo-noir, so to speak, and it is Robert Altman's interpretation of one of the more famous types of films, especially very popular in the 30s and 40s. We are talking about Philip Marlowe. There have been many Philip Marlowe adaptations. He has been played by such greats as Humphrey Bogart, Robert Mitchum, and Liam Neeson, if you can believe it. But Brian, we are going to be discussing Elliot Gould's turn as Philip Marlowe. How did you feel about this movie? And how smart is that orange cat for understanding that is not his food?
Well, first of all, I am so glad that I went blind into this movie, only knowing that it's a noir and that there's some kind of murder or something going on. And boy, am I glad that I kept the details away from myself, because man, I ate this movie up from the beginning. I was
Unlike
intrigued.
the cat
I loved
and
it.
the food, you ate this movie up.
Exactly. We'll get to that in a second, because I was laughing my ass off because I have a dog that's very particular as well. For a week straight, she'll eat the same thing, but then it's the next week that she's just like, I'm tired of it. You know what I mean? Dogs and cats, you know how it is, especially at 3:30 in the morning when they're not eating what you have at home, and you have to go out to the grocery store at 3:30 in the morning, which is the beginning of this movie, which is great because it's like the dark, grungy LA 3:30 in the morning vibe that I know so well, that still translates from the 70s. It's great. I love this vibe because it's LA. God, I wish I watched this movie earlier, but I guess I hit it at the right time because I've just seen all these different locations in the modern era, seeing like some of these locations in the past. It's like, wow, nothing much has changed. The vibe may have changed a little bit, but that LA vibe is still there. So, gosh, this movie is just something else, Jerome. Like, I was blown away by the set design, even though it's very simple set design, but the way that Robert Altman shoots like crazy looking locations from different angles. Like, it's almost as if that apartment building that Elliot Gould is living in is somehow like a labyrinth. We never see him get to the top. We're always seeing him at the top, but we never see him quite get to there and how he gets there. So there's this mysteriousness going on in terms of like the building, but I think it's like a subtle thing going on. But then all these different characters coming at you from all different from all different sides of LA. And here comes Sterling Hayden with one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in film. And he wasn't even nominated for an Oscar.
John Huston, no doubt.
Yeah, and it's like, God, this is like an old man on the sea kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like the old man who's just drunk, a Van Gogh type almost. You know what I'm saying? And he just nails this role. And I'm shocked he didn't get an Oscar nomination. I don't know what the hell was going on, because this is one of the greatest performances I've ever seen out of any actor.
Good one, that's for sure.
Seriously.
I mean, I'm not as high on this movie. I like this movie. I want to be clear about that. I don't dislike it, but this did not hit me as strongly. I'm a huge fan of film noirs. I think there have been a lot of really good ones. I don't know that for Robert Altman to showcase what he can do as a director, I don't know that this is necessarily the genre that works for him, but there's still a lot of really good things. And Sterling Hayden is one of them. And I think, just to expand on that point, I mean, clearly, again, he is going for the vibe of a John Huston. Like, you can hear it in the accent, you can hear it in the way he talks. This is absolutely the vibe that he is going for, and it's totally reasonable and understandable that he would be going for this vibe because it just works out so well. And I think the issue with the Academy Awards at this point is that they're really competitive in the 1970s. I mean, you look at a lot of these awards, and they're pretty competitive. And you go back and you just look at some of them. So I'm looking at the year 1974. John Houseman was the big winner for The Paper Chase, and this is the year when Jason Miller is getting nominated for The Exorcist. Randy Quaid is getting nominated for The Last Detail. I mean, those are two top tier supporting level performances, and I think that is the issue, unfortunately. But in terms of Sterling, should he have been nominated? Probably. I mean, he's really really good in this role, but of course he is not the lead. The lead is Elliot Gould playing a different character. I mean, he's just as disheveled, but he is organized enough to kind of to eventually solve this crime. And spoiler alert, commit a homicide in the end.
Yeah, spoiler alert, because I mean, it fooled me. Like, spoiler alert, 40 something years, 50 something years later, turns out that the guy that was killed in the beginning was not killed at all. He faked his death in Mexico. And the reason it fooled me is because they faked the footage or the photographs, which at the time in like 1973 is like really hard to Photoshop and all that shit. But they just did it with like makeup or something. And of course they did it practically, and they don't tell the audience that until later on. And it's like, oh, that's how he got away with it. But it's so convincing that it throws you off into even thinking that this guy's still alive. So that's where the big twist at the end is like, oh shit, is he still alive? Like he's starting to like put the pieces together, and then all of a sudden he goes back to Mexico, and then the Mexican cops are telling him what actually really went down with the $5,000. And by the way, I think I mentioned this during the Running Scared podcast, but not Running Scared. I don't know. The $5,000 bill is like, I thought it was a myth, and this thing is real. And they actually had one in the movie, and it blew my mind. And I guess they stopped this in circulation around like the late '60s, so it was like the right time to get a hold of one for a movie before they're out of circulation. And let me tell you, folks, it is real and it looks cool. And wow, like the '70s, man, like these little hidden gems. It's like you never knew there was a $5,000 bill that was actually like authenticated by the United States government. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean the things that we learn from a movie like this. Something else that really strikes me is just the vibe that this movie sets right from the beginning, with Elliot Gould having to get cat food for his cat, and the cat won't eat it because, I mean, Elliot Gould tries to pull his cat, and it just doesn't work. And you just get a very good sense of who he is as a cat owner and as a human being as well. And that's the kind of scene that would probably get cut in 2025 because it doesn't quote unquote directly relate to the plot. But I look at this in terms of being a Robert Altman movie, like it's one of those things that you only see with a director like him. Like he's the only one that's going to put in the time to do something like this, and I think that is a strength. But I mean, to me, I think that one of the issues is that film noirs really are not about the plot. Like they really are more vibe movies with the tropes of the femme fatale, and the detective who is getting investigated by the police and is always like seeming to get himself in trouble, and he's disheveled, he's divorced, he's probably drunk. Like these are tropes and cliches that are well worn. And again, I think that the vibe of this movie is in keeping with the way that Altman does things, like a lot of overlapping dialogue, coming into the middle of scenes. And I think that this movie at times can be really hard to put together unless you're paying very close attention, turning the subtitles on. But in some ways, I think this movie doesn't have the benefit, like MASH has the benefit of just being a series of 20-minute vignettes. Because this movie is a noir, it really only has just the one plot that they're following. And I think it's much more difficult to justify Altman's style in a movie like this as opposed to what we saw in MASH, what we see in Nashville, with all of these major characters. Like really, we're focusing on Elliot Gould's Philip Marlowe, and there are these ancillary characters. And again, you have the great Sterling Hayden performance, but I just don't know that this format works as well for The Long Goodbye as it does for MASH and Nashville.
See, in this one, I hardly noticed the overlapping dialogue, only because I guess it's more of a singular narrative, and you got following one guy, and that's kind of the noir style, as opposed to an ensemble cast where everyone's meeting at the same time. So in this case, like, I had no problem with the dialogue in terms of like the audio editing. I don't think it was an issue. The only time you get that overlapping dialogue is really when that gangster and his crew come in. And there's this little joke about how Elliot Gould is like, so you got one of every race, huh? And I was laughing my ass off because that was like a safe way to cover that notion in terms of like getting one representative for each race, especially in LA, which John Carpenter kind of had that similar thing when he filmed his movie in LA. So I just like that little detail about the gang part. But, overall, I think the vibe is very similar to The Player, which is probably why I like both films so much in the whole noir style. And I think this kind of is almost like a pseudo prequel, so to speak, in terms of like, the soul of it all and the heart of it all. Like it's like a pseudo sequel or prequel to that. And it's, I just love the vibe and this idea that he never sleeps. It's almost as if he never sleeps. It's like he just keeps going and going and going and going and never stops. He goes to Mexico multiple times and never stops. Like, because the movie opens at 3:30 in the morning, right? Like literally 3:30 in the morning, and we just never see him stop ever since then. So I just like this vibe of him never sleeping and just constantly smoking and constantly smoking. And you said it's probably a record of the most cigarettes smoked on film. I don't know. For a single person, maybe, yeah. Because it was nonstop. It was like
Pantheon level cigarette movie, that's for sure.
Pantheon level. And if he's like starting a scene, he's lighting a cigarette. If he's ending a scene, he's lighting a cigarette. It's almost like a bookend kind of thing. So in terms of character development, yeah, that's great stuff. The wife is underdeveloped. The wife character only because we don't get to hear her motive at the end. Because all we know is like we find out the truth, but we don't find out the motive behind her actually hooking up with that Terry fellow, and actually like covering up the fact that he did, fake his death in Mexico and that whole connection there. All we know is they had an affair.
I do want to point out that it feels like Altman had a lot of problems developing female characters up until Nashville, because I feel like MASH, it was a problem. It was a problem in Cave and Mrs. Miller. It is a problem here. Nashville, it's definitely a lot better, but even the ending of that, you could argue like there's still some issues there. This is going to be something that I want to pay attention to next week, because we are very much fast forwarding his career. So I'll be very curious to know when we talk about Gosford Park, how this conversation comes back in terms of the underdeveloped female characters.
Also, a quick little note that a year before Gosford Park came out, he also directed Dr. T and the Women, which is sort of a commentary on that criticism, but it's very much just Richard Gere surrounded by beautiful women in this town. So yeah, but in this case, like it's underdeveloped because we have this great dinner sequence between Elliot Gould and the wife before the suicide sequence with Sterling Hayden, which is a great sequence. The way it was shot, it was just so chaotic, and the dog barking the whole time really added to the chaos and like the franticness of it. But I just felt like it was alluding to like an affair, but it didn't go that far. So you're like, okay, this character Elliot Gould is playing this Marlowe character knows to not fuck around, right? And he's not like fucking with the wife or whatever. He's just kind of playing it cool.
Yeah.
And then we get the reveal, and we never hear why she sided with the other guy, and the money issue, and somehow she just covered up she came up with $380,000 just to cover up or prevent like the gambling debt from being paid off or whatever from that gangster. So she's got all this money. It's like, wow, like she paid off his debt. The money went missing, and she just paid off the debt, and she's still like hooking up with the guy in Mexico. It's like, where did all this money come from? And you realize it's all coming from Sterling Hayden, really. And it's all kind of like this very, like we're rich, we're bored, we're hooking up with each other's wives and husbands gimmick. And then Elliot Gould gets thrown in the middle because all of a sudden these murders happen. So that's kind of where it's at. And this LA vibe in the early 70s, like I love the motif. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of that. The colors are not that great. I'll be honest. Like the colors are not great, but
I mean, that's not when when you sign up.
Right. And again, I think he did something with the picture because it looks blown out. And we watched it on Tubi, right?
I watch it on Amazon Prime. But it's
Well, I
still,
watched it on Tubi. Yeah, same one, but that's
I
that
don't know. I
that
don't
Robert
know
Altman
whether it's
quality.
I mean, that's what he does. I mean, all his movies look dirty. I think that's absolutely what they're going for. Do you realize who did the score for this movie?
I did not, but good score. I mean, it didn't stand out too much, but it fit the vibe for sure. Didn't
John
overwhelm
Williams
me as
did
well.
the score for this movie.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Very interesting considering that also a cameo by Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the henchmen, and
Yeah.
he strips down to his underwear. And that's a whole
So I
different
want
scene right there.
I want to
But
point
yeah,
out that Sylvester Stallone, you could barely see him in MASH, but you could definitely see Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie. And I mean, look, clearly you can see why he was cast based on what happened, but it is greatly amusing to me that two of the biggest action stars of all time got some of their earliest work in movies with Robert Altman of all people.
starring Elliot Gould of
Yeah, I
anybody.
mean,
It's
very,
just
very,
it's
very true.
crazy. And I was kind of like poking fun last week that, around this time he was kind of known as a sexy leading man. And look, man, they even make jokes about it in the movie, so I get it. So,
I mean, the
for that
the TV
time,
guy, the
he
TV
fits the
guide
role.
cover with Grover is a meme at this point. You know the one I'm talking about?
Is that the one where he's got the mustache and the cigar?
Yeah, he doesn't have a cigar. I mean, he's with a Sesame Street character, so there's no
Okay,
cigar.
maybe I'm just Mandela affecting
You
that one,
you
but
need
yeah.
to you need to look it up on your own. But yes, there is a TV guide cover with Elliot Gould without a mustache, with Grover from Sesame Street.
Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? Ross's dad, right? So,
I mean, that
uh,
is also true. Yeah.
yeah. So, who would have thunk it? Two generations known him for different things, but in this case, like he's a '70s leading man, and it really works for this movie. So, in terms of budget, it broke even, but that's kind of the point with the Robert Altman movie from the early 1970s. It's not really like a
Yeah,
box
you're
office
not.
issue. It's more like,
Other than MASH, there are not a lot of huge financial successes. Like in terms of critical success, the player definitely got more recognition than a lot of his other movies, especially the latter part of his career. But yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I would say has grown in critical acclaim. At the time, definitely was kind of regarded as a mixed bag, but it is in the National Film Registry now, and will forever be preserved. So clearly, it has grown in significance, even if it is not hugely financially successful.
and let's make some things clear. Like there are some really controversial scenes, characters in this movie. Like we mentioned, like Robert Altman and female characters, and there are a group of women
Yeah,
living together in the apartment building who are hippies that I don't know. They're probably not lesbians. All the guys think they're lesbians, but they're really just doing
they
yoga,
are consuming drugs that are not legal. That is for sure.
which are probably legal today, to be honest, because they asked for brownie mix at the beginning of the movie. It made me think, oh, they're
They
just eating a lot of
do
edibles.
they do ask for brownie mix. That is a true fact. Yes.
Yeah. So, and they're doing yoga topless, which is totally fine. I have nothing against that. And they're just kind of in their own world because even when Ellie Gould knocks on their door and like checks in on them, they're just like stoned and zoned out. So that is definitely a scene from
It
1973
feels
in
very
LA
Los
in a
Angeles in the
balcony.
70s. Very Los
Yeah,
Angeles in
totally.
the
So,
time. Yeah.
and they don't really have an arc. They're just there. And you would think that they were going to find the cat, and they never find the cat, which is disappointing because the movie ends in Mexico. So we never got that final shot of the apartment. But I would assume that the cat comes back and they never thought of it or something.
I
But,
mean, the cat is mad that he didn't get his food. He didn't get the right food.
yeah, we know. And you can't fool a cat by mixing egg and tuna, which is, I don't even think a cat would eat that today, to be honest.
That's
Like,
kind of gross.
it is gross. And cats are very particular compared to dogs. So we know that for a fact.
Oh yeah, in a big
Um,
way, and especially because it's
and
a dumb orange too.
And there is a commentary on that in this movie because we know that Sterling Hayden's dog is super big and aggressive compared to like, his cat. And then there's a line about Sterling Hayden goes like, "You have a cat? You're a cat guy?" You know what I mean? Like, and I guess that kind of shows character development, like cat people, dog people. So I thought that was a nice little commentary there because that every time there is that commentary in movies, you kind of see cat people and dog people on screen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So this is, of course, Robert Altman and Elliot Gould's second collaboration, and I don't know that I feel it is as successful as their first, but it is certainly this is a solid movie. I'm at about a 7 out of 10 with this one. I think there's enough good elements to it. I think the performances are pretty standout, especially Gould and Sterling Hayden, as we mentioned. We also have the unconventional casting of baseball player Jim Bouton. He was an actor, not an actor, but a former Major League Baseball player. He is probably best known for being the author of the book Ball Four, which, like these tell-all sports books are kind of cliched at this point. He kind of wrote one of the first really famous ones. That would be Ball Four, so definitely worth noting on that. And as mentioned, I mean, we've seen Philip Marlowe in a number of other interpretations, and maybe at some point we will discuss them.
Also want to point out Henry Gibson, also from Nashville. Um, Good job in the role as a doctor that's super manipulative and gaslighting and just overall a scumbag human being. But I don't know. It was a really good performance, and he comes in and demands the money from Sterling Hayden, and he got the money. But I mean, it's almost like a nothing kind of role, but you get a guy like him to come in, and he's got that look, and he's short, and he looks like very distrusting anyway. So it adds something to a small role like that. So I think the casting was very good in terms of that, because every time you cast him in a role like that, it's very distrusting, especially in the movie The Burbs, which is like his known movie for being that kind of character. So great job in this role as well. And other small roles as well in this movie. It's just kind of hard to remember, but the guy who was that I forget his name, but the main gangster who lost all the money and then assaulted his girlfriend.
Yeah,
Son of a
he
bitch.
does an amusing job. Do you realize there have been 12 Philip Marlowe movies?
Crazy. And this is the first time I've ever like heard of the character, looked up the character. So I'm
I
kind
mean,
of
I would say
fascinated now.
the
I
most
might go on a deep dive.
famous, the most famous one I would say is The Big Sleep from 1946 with Humphrey Bogart as Philip Marlowe. That is probably the most famous one.
Well,
The
see,
other
that's
character,
what I know. I know he's in that one, but I didn't know it was like a Philip Marlowe or a Marlowe character or any of that. I just knew about the Big Sleep. So that's interesting, considering that there's also a remake, I think, of the Big Sleep that was recommended to me on Tubi, which is from the
yeah,
'70s.
Robert
So,
Mitchum. Again, Robert
yep,
Mitchum is the only actor to have played Philip Marlowe twice. There is also a James Caan led there's also a 1998 movie, James Caan as Philip Marlowe, Poodle Springs as well.
interesting. I wonder if it's kind of like the Agatha Christie kind of like response, like it's Agatha Christie stuff over, Hercule Poirot over in Europe, and here we got Philip Marlowe.
Perhaps, but
Something like that. But yeah, I mean, also note that if you really want to deep dive on some Robert Altman stuff, I didn't realize Tubi right now has a lot of his like '80s and '90s stuff that is not as popular, but they're there. So I recommend Tubi right now, and they're kind of hot on a lot of good movies. They're getting a lot of good stuff this summer, and if you want to deep dive, Tubi seems like a good spot right now for free. So check
for
it out.
sure. So next week we are going to be discussing Gosford Park. This is a movie that Brian really wanted to discuss. So what is it about Gosford Park?
Well, I mean, it's this idea that it's a murder mystery, and I just mentioned Agatha Christie, and it's kind of that vibe to it. It's not a Hercule Poirot kind of it's not that character. It's a new group of characters or whatever, but it shows this dichotomy of like the upper class and the lower class, and how like in a household, in the 1800s or whatever, you got everyone in the basement is like the lower class, and they're all like maids, butlers, and that kind of thing, and they have their own kind of like social engagements compared to the social engagements of the upper class at the top floors, right? And then with this murder involved, it's like it's a who done it, and then you kind of see like the different kind of classes kind of like crossing over a little bit, and it's kind of this like it's like an observation on the class system in England and all that kind of thing. Plus it's a murder mystery. Plus you get to make fun of like upper class British people who think they're smart and they're really stupid. And Michael Gambon is in this movie and he does a great job. So I can't recommend it enough.
Yes, I have never seen this. I am very much looking forward to watching this again, or watching this for the first time. And then in 2 weeks we'll be discussing Robert Altman's final movie, A Prairie Home Companion. A lot of discussion about Robert Altman and these kind of movies with the movie Weapons coming out, a movie that I would also highly recommend people check out. It is a new release in theaters. Brian has heard my thoughts. I don't want to say anything more. Go see this in theaters, please.
Well, I think it's going to be in my October watch list because I'm saving a lot of those new release horror movies that came out in the last year, and I'm going to binge watch a bunch of them. Nosferatu and Weapons seem to be the top two on my horror list, and yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. I'm just going to wait a little bit, because it's August. You know what I mean? Like I want the vibe of October.
I don't know, man. I think you're missing out.
I'll wait the 2 months, and I'll probably forget the spoilers anyway, and it will still shock the hell out of me. So.
All right. So for Brian, I am Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you again next week.